that's the auxiliary. General relief program would end the end of May, so therefore it would be only 6 months of operation. So we have reduced the funding and the local match. So we would have $9,628 with a local match of $3,610.50. Any questions about the general relief?
Okay. Yeah.
And what services that provide?
All right. Any questions on that from board members? Mr. Seeley?
I'd just like to talk a little bit about this, since I'm the rep for the Social Services Board for the board, and I have sat through, we've actually had Mr. Ashcraft and our Ms. Hatcher at our last meeting. We actually had a continuation of a meeting to talk about the actual budget for social services and what this means, because this is a fraction of what we really get. And with the caseload and some of the other things going on at social services that's sort of behind the scenes that nobody sees at this point in time, I think this is one of those situations where we need to help social services as much as we can. And Mr. Ashcraft, you know, we had this discussion with the whole social services board. Feel free to contribute to this, because this has been a long ongoing situation in social services. And the caseload there is unbelievable. And what I'd like to do, Mrs. Green, is actually send everybody, not at the next board meeting, but in January, some of the caseload things so everybody can see what's truly taking place in social services, because it is unbelievable.
We would be happy. I think at that meeting with Mr. Ashcraft and Fran, we were also asking to meet with the Board of Supervisors, where we would explain our caseload. And I thought things were easing down. Last week we had a holiday, and on Wednesdays we don't take applications. So the 2 days we took applications, we had 62 new applications for 2 days. That's a lot of people coming in the agency or mailing their applications in, with 4 intake workers.
And this really, the money you're looking for is really for a social work supervisor.
The second request is for a social work supervisor. It's a vacant position. We only
hire somebody.
Yes.
You want to hire somebody, and you need $3,000 to match that person's current salary, so they'll come in.
Yes.
Mr. Seeley, can you talk to that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I can. We have been through, every time we think social services has stabilized in personnel, it is one of those situations where it never lasts. And I've got to tell you, the caseloads that we've seen, the cases that we have personally heard, have been numerous. And I know that some of the situations going on become legal situations. And I know that social services needs the support. If we don't do this, I think on the front side, it will cost us later in legal fees in terms of the demands and some of the things that people are actually trying to come through social services with. I think this is the kind of help that agency needs at this point in time, is somebody that understands these cases and understands how to handle them. And I have an entire social services board that was talking with our staff going, we are behind the 8 ball, and this is something we need to do.
You're correct, Mr. Seeley.
And again, I'm just coming up on the curve, finishing my 2nd year on the Social Services Board, and I have a much higher appreciation for what takes place there than I did before. Many of the programs, I don't think people realize, are flow-through dollars. It's not something that we provide other than staff. And we partially fund staff at 20 or 30%, and the money that flows through actually flows through the community is funds that are really necessary. And I really believe this is a situation where that agency needs this kind of help and leadership to just help the rest of the staff there.
Okay.
Yeah,
board members?
I do have a question, Ms. Green. $56,000 is a good salary for pretty much anybody. And so you're telling me that we can find a qualified person for $56,000? to be the supervisor?
Sir, of the candidates that we interviewed, which were 7, the top candidate selected by the panel was this young lady who's currently a supervisor. The second candidate is a regular social worker. And the third on that list is a regular social worker who's aspiring to become a supervisor.
And so the person, are they
So
coming
if-
from a county as the size of Carolina, or are they coming from a larger county?
One is currently living in
No, I'm talking about the one you wanted to pay $59,000 to.
does not live
Almost
in
60,000.
Carolina.
Huh?
Coming
No,
from
I
an
don't mean-
agency.
I don't care what she lives in. That's not my question. My question is, what county is she coming from to come to Carolina?
She's coming from Richmond City,
From the city of Richmond.
yes.
Yeah. They can afford to pay $60,000 for someone. I'm not sure that Caroline County is at a point where we can afford to pay $60,000 for a position such as that to begin with. I have a problem with that, Mr. Chairman. I have a problem with us having to subsidize $3,000 to someone to come to work to Caroline County when the salary is 56. I mean, you would give them $56,000.
56 is not was the last supervisor's current salary.
I don't know that makes. I don't understand what that is all
That
about.
means that we're locked in. $56,000 was the past person in that position's salary. So we're locked into that salary. That's why we're asking $3,000
That's the
additional.
salary the state
But
is.
the pay range goes below that and goes above that.
Right, but that's the salary range that the state has indicated that they should be in. Is that not correct?
There's a pay range.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Pay range.
And the pay range starts below that, but the highest is above that. And I don't have those exact figures with me. But that salary, if you take a poll of social work supervisors, it's probably one of the lowest with the surrounding agencies. Our salaries aren't competitive. Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, Stafford pays much more for supervisors. That's why we can't get competent workers to apply for these positions, because our salaries are not competitive. So my choice is to hire a line worker, try to train them to be a supervisor, and we may be dealing with more legal problems at that point. These positions, a social work supervisor dealing with child protective services and foster care in the court, in the legal system, you've got to have extensive knowledge. We have so much policy and the liability and safety issues. You know, I just was called last week to a special grand jury to testify based on our cases. So we either pay now or we pay later.
I understand, Ms. Green.
We have to have a knowledgeable person.
I served on the Social Service Board for 12 years or better. In fact, I was on the board when you were hired as a director. So I do know the issues are there. But again, I'm not convinced, and as we used to have this discussion when I was on the board, is the fact that I'm not convinced that we cannot hire someone that's capable of doing the job. It may take them some training, but is certainly capable of doing the job at $56,000.
Mr. Green,
You know,
quick question. That $56,000 salary position is not filled now.
No.
How much local money is associated with that position now? Is it 80-20?
It's about 20%, yes,
How long has it not been filled?
since August,
Oh, so you only have like 3 months.
3 months.
If you go another 3 months, the money you saved makes up the $60,000.
We have an emergency worker that is charging me $25 an hour between the social work.
Oh, wait a second. There's another factor here?
Yeah, there's another factor. We have an emergency person that's working with us part-time, so we aren't saving any money by that position being vacant.
You're paying the emergency worker out of that person's salary?
Yes.
does the emergency workers' salary equal the local match on the 56, or is it more?
It's less, but if you compute it out, because she's only working for us part-time, and we aren't paying benefits, but she's charging me $25 an hour. And that computes out, if you did, about $46,000 a year.
So it seems like we're already paying this 3,000 just in another way. Not quite.
Well, not quite.
Yeah, okay.
The current position is paying for that.
Right, the current position is paying for that. But okay. Okay, thank you.
And of course, if the workers had any that left that position, we sometimes have to pay for leave and other balances when they leave.
Okay. But there is another factor, and you're actually paying somebody now at a higher salary than normally because they're just filling.
We have an emergency worker that we hired.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, how do you like to dispose of these two matters?
Mr. Chairman, having listened to the Social Services Board, I guess I feel compelled to make a motion to facilitate this and a motion of granting the 3,000 so that we can get this position filled, because it is causing a lot more detriment at this time than we realize.
Okay, and you're just saying just the 3,000?
At this time, yeah.
I'll second that motion.
All right, this is for the social service supervisor, social work supervisor. Okay. Motion made and probably seconded that we provide the 3,000 local match for the social work supervisor, $3,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Dissension, we'll go through in the vote. Mr. Poppers, how you vote?
No.
Mr. Akers, how you vote?
No.
Mr. Seeley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas, how you vote?
Aye.
And the chair will vote aye as well. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
second item. Was there a second item?
The second item was the general relief program, and that's up to the board if they want us to offer that program. The state made the money available, and I'm just presenting it.
I have no problem with that.
That's a local match of $7,221.
No, the local match would be $3,610.
Half of that, okay.
Half of that.
Well, do you have a timeline on that one?
You're not doing that?
We would start the program December 1st, and it would end May 31st. And the state has discontinued the program after that. It will be not offered next year.
Mr. Chairman, I have no problem in supporting something that's going to benefit the people, so I would make a motion that we provide this $3,610.50 that is requested by Social Services Board.
Motion been made.
That's for the
Second.
general relief program.
I'll second that.
Motion made and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. All right. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
You have a good evening.
All right.
All right, next we have the consent agenda items. Item A, as you remember, was pulled. Members desire to pull any of the items. Motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I have just a question on item B. This is more of a statement. And on item E, I just want to make sure I understand everything there. So I would make a motion that we approve C, D, F, G, and H at this time.
Second.
Motion made and properly second to approve the consent agenda items C through H. All those in favor say aye.
Not E. C, D, F, G, H. Skip it.
Okay, and skipping E. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Okay, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the warrant issue, I have asked, as the board members probably have in their copies of the warrants, that's pretty much, the first page is pretty much a printout from our financial system. And I've asked Mrs. Hatcher, today we spoke, and I asked her if we can get a more detailed version of this particular expenditure summary so we can include the funds it's coming from and the balance remaining in each fund. And I think that additional information would help the board highlight problem areas before they become a problem. So I'm just asking, that's just a point of information. If anybody objects, I've just asked Mrs. Hatcher if she would be able to provide that additional information. Is that the information we talked about, just that? That's just, oh, I was just gonna say, just say yes or no, or just nod your head, but.
Yes, I can give it, but I don't think it's going to be what you're.
I can give you, for each warrant list, the budget year-to-date spent and the warrant amount. However, that does not include things that aren't going through the warrant list, such as payroll, transfers, things of that nature. So you may see a small amount, and then if you try to add it from warrant list to warrant list, it's not going to add up. So
That's, I mean, that's fine to me. I just feel that right now, more information is better. So the more I can see things like that, to say, oh, in particular, let's pick one of the funds, the Carmel Church Utility Fund is $24,000 we're paying this year. Year to date is $200,000, and we've got $500,000 left. That just helps me, because there was a time, I know Mr. Akers remembers, where we sat down and went through all 62 pages of the warrants, and it wasn't really productive. But if we could just look at the review and then be able to say, oh, this particular fund is using a lot of money, or this particular fund is not, it'll just help us in financial planning. And I don't think anything that helps us with financial planning is a bad thing right now. So, I mean, you've done a great job so far. I'm just asking for a little bit more extra work, and we'll try it a few weeks. Is that okay? Thank you. So I'm going to approve B, but I might as well do E also.
Okay.
And item E is a school board request for, actually, Mrs. Hatcher, I guess you can come back. When I was at Bowling Green Elementary yesterday, one of the people that I met with yesterday said that they had attended a school board meeting, and the school board said the Board of Supervisors was holding X amount of funds and hadn't released them. And I just want to make sure that we state that correctly, because these are funds that come from the federal or state government.
that's correct.
Okay. Those funds that come from the state government are reimbursement-only funds.
That's correct.
So basically, in these, we're looking at 39, 244, whatever. The number's close to $500,000. The county has already given the schools that $500,000. And now we're just getting reimbursement from the state or local fund, or state or federal fund. Is that correct?
Not quite.
Okay. We'll explain it correctly then.
The schools cannot spend these monies until the board approves the appropriation. Once the board approves the appropriation, the schools are allowed to spend the money on these certain items and then ask for a reimbursement from the state or the feds for it. But until the board appropriates the additional funding, they can't spend it.
Okay. And
So we haven't spent it to date, in other words.
okay, but then they're basically going to spend general fund money, and then we're going to get a reimbursement.
That's correct.
Okay. And these requests, we just got this is the first time we've gotten this request. Okay. Dr. Kilo, I hate to do this, I know you're a spectator, but could you come forward just for a quick second, just to make sure I understand? And I will allow you the same courtesy the next time I'm at a school board meeting as a spectator. You can feel free to ask me to come forward
She's
and
done a good job, Doug.
talk about the county part.
Thank you.
Well, I know she's done a good job. It's just, I want to make sure that, you know, we're not holding you up, make sure the county's giving the schools what they're supposed to get. The request we have is dated November 9th, which was last week from the school board meeting. So we're just getting this request now. Hasn't held you up at all?
No, and the comment wasn't made at the board meeting. This is normal operation, what we do every year. Leifin and Becky have spent time with Mrs. Hatcher, and they've gone over and reviewed all of this so that she could be brought up to date and understand all the process. And everything is in order, in line, and we can't spend it till you appropriate it, and what you shared, what she shared about us then using general, and we immediately get the reimbursements is all correct.
Okay. And I know I was kind of detailed about it, but basically what I got from a citizen was they were at the school board meeting. Their impression was we were holding up funds from the school board, and I could have misheard. And I want to make sure I was clear. You know, if I misheard their comment, then that's the way it is. But I just want to make sure we're not holding up the school board.
No.
You're getting what you need. Okay.
We're
Thank
all
you
in
very
the
much.
right timelines.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Hatcher. Mr. Chairman, I would, I just wanted to make sure we were all clear there. I would, I've lost my place, and move that we approve those two items that were held off the consent agenda. B and E, thank you.
Approval of warrants, okay, and school budget.
B and E.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made, proper second to approve B and E. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries. Okay, at this point, we'll move into public comment period. If you'd like to speak to the board on any matter, other than the matters that are on public hearing for this evening, you may do so at this time. So, Mrs. Hall, will you read the rules?
The public comment period shall be for the purpose of allowing the public to speak to the board on any matter which is not scheduled for public hearing at this meeting. To help conduct the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, please refrain from clapping or other public demonstrations of support or opposition. Public comment period shall not serve as a forum for debate with the board or a question and answer period with the board. Remarks shall be addressed only to the board and not to staff, the audience, or the media. All public comments shall be made in a respectful manner. Cursing and antagonistic behavior are prohibited and shall be grounds for removal from the meeting. Comments should focus on matters or issues before the board or county and not individual board members or staff. Comments which single out an individual board member or staff may be ruled out of order by the chair. Each speaker shall clearly state his or her name, address, and voting district if applicable. There shall be a time limit for each individual speaker of 3 minutes. No speaker shall address the board more than once during the public comment period at any single board meeting. County administrator will time the speakers and notify them when their time has expired.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hall. And at this time, if there are any citizens who'd like to address the board on any matter other than those that are scheduled for public hearing, you may do so at this time and state your name and your voting district. If there are more than one, if the next person would stand in line, we'd appreciate that.
Kelly West, Mattapanai, Ruther Glen, Virginia. Gentlemen, I have in my hand a letter with signatures to the Commonwealth Attorney requesting the Virginia Attorney General investigate this board for your questionable planning, spending, and borrowing that is at best narrow-minded, short-sighted, and irresponsible, and at worst may be motivated by self-interest and a quid pro quo coziness. But either way, What you have done to this county will continue to cripple us far into the future. Many of the people who signed this letter are neither Republican nor Democrat, but all are concerned and frustrated. We want a sound fiscal policy. It seems you build your library in Dawn for one board member, your YMCA for another. You are building your wastewater treatment plant for your exponential growth, while the school system suffers and the hookup rate for utilities is the highest in the state. Instead of encouraging the industry, which has always thrived here, agriculture, timber, transportation, and traveling services, our local banks and the services that we do have, you are building a library in the middle of nowhere, which will need to be staffed and maintained. But you have neglected the maintenance of the county school buildings and the teachers and resources for the children who attend these schools. You are building a YMCA, but the school's athletic facilities are in a shambles. Your plan for traffic at 104 exit in Carmel Church has resulted in a drastic loss of revenue for those businesses and may ultimately result in significant loss of jobs and loss of revenue to fund your unrestrained spending and ever-escalating debt. Your planned buildup in Ladysmith has resulted in a system of debt, while Ladysmith now has the highest foreclosures in the county, the greatest loss of values in their homes, and the glut of vacant office and commercial space. The new medical clinic is closing. This should cause you to think, if our economy is such that we cannot support a clinic with doctors, how is it we're going to fund your pet projects? How many people will you have to lay off next year? This is a direct result of your planning. You have ignored the most basic and universal law of economics. You have produced an overabundant amount of supply where there is no demand. But your pet projects continue, and we want to know why. You make more debt and you raise taxes, but I would remind you, gentlemen, that while you are doing so, we have people in this county who can barely afford to buy groceries, let alone gas to get to the library or a membership at the YMCA. Likewise, we have children who have gone to classrooms without heat and where there are towels in the windows to keep out the cold. I hope you gentlemen sleep well tonight.
All right, thank you. Next speaker. I'd like to come forward, state your name and voting district.
Linda Keith, Mattapani. I too second what she just said. I have questions about the YMCA that on your budget says it's been funded and yet there is no vote on it. Why would you want to build a YMCA if you have a sports complex that is vacant right now? And you apparently don't care about the schools. And it's heartbreaking to see that a county, as good as this county can be, you don't care. Your constituents have been up here numerous times to tell you these things, and it's about time you start listening to them. You will be up for re-election quite soon, and you may not be sitting there.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. Next speaker. If there's another, please come up.
Yes, my name is Donna Stevens, Mattapani, and I also would like to address the YMCA. To me, this would be a waste of money because Caroline County, and I haven't lived here but several years, and the county to me seems like a poor county, if I must say so. And to build a Y would cost money, and the Y is only going to benefit the wealthy people. Caroline County residents, a lot of them would not have money to even attend the Y or join the Y. With the tax reform on the health care and the health care reform that's being offered now by the president, why don't we do something like an outdoor thing where anybody could go at any time. And it would help all the fat kids, fat adults, instead of charging them. It could be free and would be something for the county to be proud of. And we could work on getting our kids in fit. Also, I would like to address Sparta with the military. I read in the paper where they're going to do environment testing on plants. What would be the purpose of that? Is it something underlined here that we're not seeing or understanding? Is it dangerous chemicals that might be used in this area? Because I don't live far from Sparta, and I can tell you right now, from the vibrations of the shooting and the firing, my walls are cracking. In my house, my walls are actually cracking. Bricks have fallen out of my gateway from the vibration. And I think that we need to put more consideration on what's really going on, because I'd like to know why we're going to test the plants of the environment. If someone could give us some answers. When this first started, I was with the understanding that nothing was ever mentioned about them being in Sparta. It was down at AP Hill. I might be wrong, but I don't think so. That's all I have to say, and I think we all need to really take a look at what's trying to go on around here, and let's get it right and help everybody, not just certain areas. We need to help all the children. They are the ones that need to exercise and stuff, not the adults with the big fat wallet to go to the Y, the little kids, because they're our future, and they're going to be running this county sooner or later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stevens. Any others who'd like to address the board? Any others who'd like to address the board at this time? Are there any other citizens who'd like to address the board? All right, here now we'll close the public comment period. And certainly, we appreciate the opportunities for you guys to come in and talk, and we certainly hear you, and we appreciate you exercising your rights to come in here and speak and let us know what you think. The YMCA is still a project that's being worked with the developer in that area, and that's a project that's going to basically have to primarily pay its way, and that's what's been said all along on that project. So there's time still to work out with the developers over there at Ladysmith to see how that's going to pan out. We're not sure at this point how that's going to pan out, but there's still more work to be done on that. And as far as the schools, we have spent a lot on repairing schools. You guys have, the taxpayers have, and we are looking at working with a CIP now of multiple projects that the schools want to make improvements. And we're going to meet with our school board representatives next week to discuss in detail more of these school issues. And but I haven't heard anyone from this board say we're not going to make any improvements to any of these schools. And so we'll continue to work on those school issues very soon. Okay. All right, again, we thank you guys for your comments, and we'll move into the next portion of the meeting, but we'll take a short break before we go into public hearings. Let's reconvene the public hearing portion of the meeting, and first we'll review the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment Text 04-2010 regarding height limitations in the M1 Industrial District. Mr. Pensham, you want to make this presentation?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your first public hearing tonight is on TXT 04-2010. which would change the height limitation in the M1 industrial district. This item was first discussed by the board at your September 14th meeting, at which time we discussed the height limitation issue that we were concerned we were going to run up against with the McKesson project. In the end, we were able to resolve the concerns about height limitation. However, the applicant had requested that we go forward with a proposed text amendment that would increase the maximum height in the M1 industrial district from 45 feet to 65 feet, which would be consistent with the height restrictions in the planned industrial park designation. In order to accomplish the height increase from 45 to 65, there would be an additional setback of 2 feet for each 1 foot of increase in height. So any increase in height would have to be set back beyond the required setback in the M1 zoning district, so that you would not have these potentially taller structures still having, being up close to property lines and utilizing the current minimum front side or rear setback requirement. The Planning Commission did consider this proposed text amendment and forwarded the amendment to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval. And the full text amendment is included in your staff report.
Okay. Board members have questions of Mr. Fincham?
I do have one question, Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Akers?
I have no problem in trying to get consistency between the planned industrial and the M1. Where would an M1 be allowed that a planned industrial would not be allowed? In what areas of the county?
Actually, there really are no separation between those two zoning districts, okay? In early years, a planned industrial district was created, okay, which has some differences from the M1, but in terms of uses, they're fairly consistent. So in an area in our comprehensive plan where somebody that's currently zoned in industrial, in theory, somebody could come in and make application for a planned industrial designation versus the M1 designation, and the uses are generally consistent.
And the reason I raised the question is the fact that, a McKesson, for instance, where they're going, 65 feet high is not going to be an issue. But, and I'll just use close to home, something in the Lady Smith area, if it's now zoned M1 and someone wanted to put a 65-foot building, it may be of some concern with everything else that Lady Smith is and had. So that's the reason I'm asking, is the fact that if you're saying that they are basically one and the same, then that's one thing.
Yes, sir. I think that's a good point for discussion. You have a couple of larger M1 lots in the Lady Smith area, for example, off of Green Road, where you have sufficient area where you could add roughly 50 feet to your side setbacks on each side. So sure. You could meet 100 additional feet of setback required to go up to the maximum of 65 feet. Where we see these, but beyond those locations, some of the other industrial pieces, I'm not sure they could meet the setbacks. But we can take a look at that and actually identify the exact number of parcels in the Lady Smith area where you might be able to meet the higher setbacks and get the full 65-foot height restriction. We can certainly do that if you want us to do that before you vote.
Well, I don't, this is the, no, I just would like to know where the areas are at so that we can identify them if we ever approached.
Okay.
So any M1 site in the county technically could then go to the 65-foot hut regardless of the type of building or type of industry going in it?
Yes, sir. The height limitation would allow any use to go up to the 65 feet. Could be an office building, could be a distribution center somewhere to McKesson.
Right.
So any industrial use, the height of the structure, okay, could go up to 65 feet with the increase in setback.
Right, okay.
So that you're not right on the property line.
So the piece of property really that would, the only way to do this is the piece of property would have to dictate the height, the setbacks, and that would dictate the size of the building if they, depending on, the acreage that was there.
Yes, sir.
You couldn't put this on a 2-acre site necessarily. You'd end up with a tiny building that was real tall.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we proceed with the public hearing?
I'm fine.
Okay. All right, we now open the public hearing for the text amendment 04-2010. Any citizens who'd like to address the board on this matter? Are there any citizens who'd like to address the board on this public hearing? Are there any citizens who would like to address the board on this text amendment? Hearing none, we declare the public hearing closed. Board members, how would you like to dispose of the issue?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the text amendment as presented by staff and in our packets.
Second.
We have a motion made and probably second to accept the text amendment 04-2010. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. All right, motion carried. Next item, number 4, this is for public comment and public comment only. For proposed proposals received by Carolina County Wastewater Treatment Plant upgrade and expansion under the Public-Private Education Facilities and Infrastructure Act 2002, PPEA. Mr. Shebel.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The second public hearing tonight will be to allow the public to comment on the 2 PPEA proposals that we received during that process. Public advertisements for review of the proposals and the public hearing tonight were advertised as required. As of this date, no one is asked to review the proposals. No action is required by the board after public hearing. Be glad to answer any questions.
All right, any questions? Primarily public comment on the proposal. All right, we'll now declare the public hearing open for the comments. Any citizens who would like to address the board on public comments? Are there any citizens who would like to make public comments? Are there any citizens who would like to address the board on the PPEA proposals? Hearing none, we declare the public hearing closed. All right, and that's basically, we don't need any action on that. We just need to conduct a public hearing.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Yeah. All right. Next, item 5, proposed restriction of through truck traffic on State Route 610, Peppermire Hill Road. Mr. Fincham, are you going to address this topic?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, at your October 12th meeting, you authorized staff to advertise a public hearing for the restriction of through truck traffic on Route 610, or what's known as Peppermire Hill Road. Supervisor Popowitz has received a number of complaints about heavy trucks utilizing that road as a cut through between Route 17 and Route 2 coming back towards Bowling Green. Sections of the road have both vertical and horizontal curve restrictions which limit sight distance or which narrow, limit the pavement width of the road. Because of the concerns about the truck traffic and those narrow or curvy sections of the road,